Okay, so here we go. A Yom Yom for today, first day of Tammuz. The Mesiras Nefesh, self-sacrifice, appropriate for Torah scholars, is, as our sages have expressed, they expressed this, that said, when a man dies in a tent, okay, this is a pasuk, of course. It's this, introducing the laws of Tuman. When a person dies in a tent, an ohel, that's the father of all tumas. Death is the father of all tumas. But he uses this metaphorically when a man dies in a tent. So dying signifies to kill all pleasure taking in worldly matters. And the way I've always approached this, consistent with the rest of the way we're learning about the relationship between us and worldly things, is killing the worldliness of the matter. In other words, we know that matter is hugely valuable. All the mitzvahs are done with matter. But to kill the worldliness, the pleasure in the thing per se as a piece of stuff, okay, for even trivial worldly matters, worldly delights, that is, delight in the worldliness of the matter, prevent one from being thoroughly devoted and dedicated to the tent of Torah. So that's how the metaphor works back to the Torah. When a man dies in the tent, you could die in the tent of Torah, if you're preoccupied with things of this world and don't see things of this world as an opportunity for revealing the godliness which is within them. That's today's Yom Ramadan of Dirush. Okay. Lessons in Tanya. Yes, we're starting a new chapter today. Chapter 10 on page 960 in Lessons in Tanya. And in Lakuti Amorim, it starts on page Pei Zion, Perik Yud. We're going to explore the metaphor that's been brought before in Tanya of the relationship between the sun and the rays of the sun. Earlier in Tanya, the emphasis on this metaphor was that there's Hashem, and he is called the Mo'er, the radiator like the sun. And there are the rays of the sun, which are not him, as he is a radiator, but something derived from him. Okay? Now, they contain something of him. For instance, that's the sun. Sunlight has certain qualities, but they're distinct because when they're in the sun, we don't call them rays at all. So there, the notion is on the distinctiveness and the separation from, and the difference between the radiator and the radiation. Here, we're going to explore it in just the opposite way, because we've been exploring the notion that he and his midos are one. In fact, we said that the midos of him are really like something that's being done. Chochmah me'ayin temotzei. Chochmah comes from nothing, but Chochmah is, he makes everything with Chochmah, and we use that to say that Chochmah itself is simply something that is doing, right? But at the same time, and this is the Chiddush here, because it's in Shar Yichud Ve'emunah, at the same time, he himself is invested in it. As separate as they are, and as low as we refer to them, to even his sphere of Chokhmah, they contain his essence. He is enclosed in and embedded in, he himself, that is, his every essence is embedded in everything. So, let's begin. We said in the last chapter, we ended by saying this perception, or this way of looking at things, that however separate everything is, it's always included in, and Hashem is included in everything. So this is not in the realm of intellect to understand this. It's a function of Emunah, and that's how we ended yesterday's chapter. So even though it's a function of Amunah, Mekol Mokim, nevertheless, now we're starting Perek Yud, and we're going, of course, we're going to do the whole Perek today. That's today and Shabbos. Mekol Mokim, nevertheless, even though it's not a function of Seichel to grasp this, and it's grasped with the Usa Deliba, with the will of the heart, something deeper than Seichel. Nevertheless, since the Torah speaks in the language of man, in order to allow the ear to hear. In other words, the Torah itself is called a mashal hakadmoine, the primordial mashal. In order for us to have any sense of this at all, the Torah gives us mashalim. And it's the one that we'll be using this time. And as I said, we used earlier, but in a different context, is the mashal of the sun and the rays of the sun. So the Torah speaks metaphors in order for us to have for the ear to hear. Whatever the ear can hear. Therefore, permission has been granted, meaning on high, the way God gave the Torah over, he gave it with the understanding that it will need to be given over in Mashalim, and permission was given to the men of truth, the wise men of truth, the Darder Spiros derech Mashal, to speak about the Spiros, the 10 Spiros, in the context of a Mashal. And what is the mashal? The 10 spheres are Vikores Oisem Oires. The 10 spheres are called lights. In order that through this mashal, in order, and this is, as I said, the emphasis in this chapter, to understand the unity of the Holy One, blessed be He, who is Kadosh Umuvdal, separated, and yet at the same time united with. And of course, we've learned before in a different vocabulary that this is the yichud, the unity of the or makif, the all-encompassing light, with the or mamali, the particular light. And that any particular thing, no matter how particularized it is, contains the or makif, which is the essence of God himself. I mean, or makif goes way, way up into all different kinds of levels, but for simplicity, we call it God himself. He himself is invested in everything. That's what we learned earlier, I think, about Hashgacha Pratis. That Hashgacha Pratis isn't just that he's watching on things, but he's there directing, bringing everything into being at this most minuscule level. So we have this mashal, and we call the mashal of the radiations of Hashem by the spiros, and we call them light. Today, in order that through this mashal, and that's the essence of this chapter, to understand a little bit of the unity of the Holy One, blessed be He, and His midos. Which is, and we've used, and this is the mashal that we're using this time for expressing the unity of himself and the light, the unity, the mashal of the sun, and the light of the sun when the light is within the sun. The unity of the ray of the sun, or Hashemesh, Shabbatek Guf Kader Hashemesh, when as it is in the ball, the globe of the sun, the unity of that Im Guf Hashemesh, whereas it is united with the body of the Shemesh of the sun itself. And the sun itself is called the Mo'er, the radiator. So you have the radiation, the beam, and the source, the radiator, and they are one. We got this vocabulary from Chumash. Chumash calls the sun Hamor Agadol, the great radiator. The Haziv Hanitzis and a spark and rays and sparks which come from it, the sun Nikra Or, is called light. As written back to the Chumash, V'yikra Elakim La'or, Yaim. He called the light day. The light being the radiation, the source of it all, the sun. And when the light is in the source, Beguf Hashemesh, in the body of the sun, it's united with it with a complete unit. Ki ein shom, because over there there's not rak etzem echad, there's only the essence, the ball of the sun. Shehu guf hamer, as he said, which is the body of the radiator, which is radiating, or the body of the one who is illuminating with the illumination. Ki aziv ha'or, because there, ziva or shom, they are there an etzem echad. They're one essence. Mamish. The light is united with the sun. The light itself is united in guf hamoyer, with the body of the radiator hameir, which radiates. The ein light shun mitzias klal, and the light, the beam of the sun, there has no separate existence. I put in the word separate at all. Has no separate existence at all. Bifnei atzmo, he says it. There's no separate existence at all. The light is included in the sun, and that's a notion. Well, if you want to translate into what's the metaphor, that everything which is ever going to be is there always, included in the oneness. This is what we spoke about yesterday, the primordialness, that everything that ever will be is there from the start. It's just a matter of bringing it forth into a level where it's experienced as something else. K'likasiv, as is written, excuse me. So just in the same terms, and even more so, in other words, in the terms of the analogy we're using, and even more so, so there are the attributes of Hashem. So here we're likening the attributes to the rays, because there's separation, Hesed, Gevur, Tiferes, etc. But when they're in the sun, and here what we're pointing out in this chapter is they're really always in the sun, even though they come out from the sun. He and as it says in the Zohar about his midos and atzilas, he and his kelim, he and his attributes are one. Okay, they're there when they're in the sun. We're in the sun. They're in the midas of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, the attributes of the Holy One, and they are Ratzoynei v'Hachmosai, his will and his wisdom, as they are in Atzilus. They are one with his essence, kaviyachol, if you could say such a thing. Meaning, this is something that's you could say it, but understand it. That even though we call them spheros, and we enumerate 10, they are at the same time completely one with him. They're mislabish b'seifam. He is enclosed within them. And he is united with them. With a complete unity. Because they are emanated from him, may he be blessed, like the light of the sun from the sun. And here a way of understanding this is that though the rays of the sun are coming down from the sun, there's a quality of sunness, we call it sunlight, right? There's a quality of sun in the light. The sun has the ability to bring forth things, not from nothing, but to make things sprout, let's say. The sun has that capability. But that capability isn't realized in the sun. That capability is realized in the rays of the sun. So the sun's capabilities are realized in the ray. So that's the notion that we're exploring here, that though there's a sense of multiplicity in rays, and that's different from the simplicity, which is the source itself, nevertheless, the quality of the source, the quality of Ein Sof is in everything. So it's not, the mashal is not 100% like the nimshal. He says the mashal is way distant from the reality itself. And that reality, that the rays of the sun, though they are here on earth, right? The rays of the sun here on earth, we call them rays, but they're not sun. But when Hashem manifests his midos and his creativity and his creative energy, he is always here. Right? Remember way back when we said that message, what would happen if the sun were to be here? Everything would burn up. That's not the case with Hashem. Hashem is in everything. And that's not within our power. That's a wondrous thing. It's very far from, as he says, far from our ability to comprehend. Because, as it says in Yeshayahu and Isaiah, his ways are way higher than our ways. They're not just higher in gradation, but in a different realm. Nevertheless, in order for us to have some ability to get this, for the ear to hear, then is boinin, and for us to be able to contemplate this, the moshel ora shemesh, in the light, in the metaphor of the light of the sun, which is nullified in its source, and when it's in its source, the light is not called sun at all. Rak Shem Hamokir Lavada. What is the source called? It's called the source. It's called the Mo'er, the source of the light, not the light. So Kach Kol Midaisav Shel HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Similarly, all the attributes of the Holy One, blessed be He. But Ratzainai, not just His Chesed, but His Ratzon and His Chochmah, Einan Elis V'Nikras B'Shemos Elu Klal. They don't have names at all, Ela Lagabe HaNevroim, except from our perspective. That's from the perspective of the lower realms, the realms of emanation, the Mamali Kol Almin, the way he fills all worlds, they have names. And they have names even in states of being, but states of distinguishable being, which are even at the highest levels. At the highest levels and at the lowest levels, that's when we call them by names. Because they're coming into being, and their very life, the life of these energies, these midos, from Ratzon all down, and the way they are conducted, and he takes these energies and with them he brings forth worlds and he conducts worlds. That is, in other words, always was, back to our primordial, always was in his essence, those things which are appearing as distinct things like Ratzon, will, and Bina, V'daitoi, as his energies, as the HaKadosh Baruch Hu, the Holy One, blessed be He, is mislabish and clothed in his midos, in these holy midos. Kediyisa b'midrash is brought in the Gemara Chagiga, a midrash in Gemara Chagiga, on the pasuk V'asara Devorim Nivra Ha'olam. It says with 10 things the world was created. Mechokma, b'tavuna, b'das. It goes on. Chokma being a das, and all the other 7. The Kasiv, as is written, it's a pasuk. Hashem b'chokma yesod oretz. Hashem with chokma, He uses His chokma, and here we're using it sort of as a tool, right? These midos from Ratzon on down, they're tools. Using that's not a bad moshel either, because the tool is able to be utilized for something only when it's in the hand of the carpenter or the craftsperson, right? So even though the tool is a separate thing and it lies in the tool case, when it becomes a tool that is utilize what it's for, there has to be a connection between it and the carpenter. So similarly, there's the investment of the Kadosh Baruch Hu in all of the separate midos from Ratzon all down. Hashem b'chokhmah, Hashem in chokhmah yesod oretz, kainin shemayim b'tavuna, and He establishes there's the He in the midah, the heavens and the earth. Bedaitoi tahoimis nikovu, with His das, again, different faculties. Chokhmah being in das is in the tahim, the splitting of divisions are done through His das. The apikas asitikunim, as it says in the Zohar, He emits, He brings forth, but the real feeling of the world, He extrudes. In other words, like an extrusion from a clump of metal. the extrusion always, if it's a clump of silver, the extrusion from it retains the quality of the silver. And I say that's what we're after in this particular chapter, is the extrusion, though it's not the same as the source, like the ray is not the same as the source, it contains the qualities of the source. That he extrudes, but the word, why they translate it, brings forth the 10, he brings forth the 10 tikkunim, which are the 10 spiros. We call them the 10 spiros, to you to guide, to bring forth, to hanhaga, to conduct with them the hidden worlds, the leis galgen, the hidden worlds which are not revealed, and the olmen galgen, and the revealed worlds, ubehen iskasias, and in them, and this is what he himself is hidden. Although they're separate, and that's the material earlier, the rays of the sun are separate from the sun, and we don't call them sun. Nevertheless, sunness, this is our chapter, sunness, essence, is enclosed in them. Even though they're revealed as separate things, ubahen iskasias, in them he is concealed. That's today's Tanya. Let's go now to Shabbos. Al derg mashal, Meyem Rishon will take the first day of creation, Meshesis Yemei Bereshis, the first day of the 6 days of creation. Yeah. Niglis Midas Chesed. The first day of creation was, there are 6 midos, right? Well, excluding Malchus, the 7th. 6 days of creation. Chesed, and each one correspond. Chesed is the first day of creation. Chesed Kalula Nikol Midoisot. Now, this is an important point. Although it's the time of Chesed, or let there be light, that light, for it to be a beam, had to have some degree of separation, some degree of definition. And that definition comes from Gevurah. This is the quality of what we call Olam HaTikun, the world of Tikun that we live in, that the midos are included with each other. So light is shining, but to the extent that it's a ray and it's defined different from something else, that's the Gevurah that's within it. But in the first day of creation, and that's what he says, that Chesed, which was the dominant midah, let there be light, is Kalula Mikol Midosav HaKadoshis, includes all the holy midos, and even the upper qualities, which we don't usually call midos, but which he in this chapter and the previous he is, starting with Ratzon, he's calling them, they are, since we named them something, they're measured. They have a certain measurement to them. So all this holy midas with his and his, including his will and his wisdom and his understanding, the daite, mulboshin bo, are enclosed in that midah of chesed on the first day, when he said, Yehi or, let there be light. Is included in the light. Remaimer Yehi or, in the expression, let there be light. Shehi bechinas ispashis v'hamshochas ha'or, which, what is light? Light is the drawing down and the spreading out of the light le'olam, into the world, milamayla, from above. V'espashdusa be'olam, and it's spreading out into the world, the soif ha'olam, from one end of the world to the other end of the world, ad soif ha'olam ad soifoi, from one end of the world to the other end of the world, shehu bechinas midas ha'chesed. Chesed alone has the quality of complete open giving with no restraint. Rak, he created worlds, defined things where there is a restraint and a definition to the light. Because the light of Chesed in the world of Tikkun includes the aspect of Gevurah. So therefore, it's not like the spiritual light in the upper levels. And it can become enclosed into this physical thing. Remember, this is the only world which is physical, Gashmi. And this is again, that chesed, which on its nature is an infinite giving, can be mislabish in physical things. This is the union of the infinite and the finite. That's the quality, the particular quality, the distinctive quality of Olam Hazeh. Shehu, there's Ruchni and Gashmi together. Okay, the Gam Islamish Olam Hazeh. Shehu b'chinas gavul. This world is characterized by boundedness, the tachlis, and definition, and ends. Shehu, the halat tovka shana, and he again uses this before, divisions in time, from when there's divisions in place, the time. Difference in time from the earth to the heaven, it takes a certain amount of time and measure. And this is place from east and west. These are the divisions. Sheni, now localize and go now to Yom Sheni, whose characteristic is Rakia, right? That characteristic of the second line is complete boundedness, definition. Okay, Yom Sheni, Niglas Midas HaGavora. But Mida Gavora is also Kulula Mishar Midos. It includes all the other Midos, Viratsoine, Vichachmose, Obanase, etc. Hobora Boharakia. And with that predominant Mida of Gavora, he created the firmament. Interesting that in English it's got firm, meaning something that's not just flowing from one thing into another, but defined. It says, let there be firmament within the water, which we're translating openly on this page. Let there be Gavora within Chesed. Gavora Shebechesed. Bihimavdil ben Maim Lamayim, and let there be separation between waters. Shehi Bechina Simsum, and this is the Simsum, the contraction. V'Gavuresh, and the contraction comes from the Gavuras, the constraints. Lahalim Amayim, to conceal the supernal waters, Haruchnim, the supernal spiritual waters, Mimayim HaTachtainim, from the lower waters, which are physical. And through this, is physicalized the infinite, non-physical light of Hashem. The lower worlds become physicalized. And in that, they become, this world, Olam Hazeh, becomes separated entirely, different entirely from all the upper worlds, which are completely ruchnius. And the Midah of Chesed in this world of Gevurah is included. Ki oilam chesed yabana. In fact, we say oilam chesed yabana. That's the pasuk. It doesn't say oilam Gevurah yabana. There is, and we've learned this in other places, not the Chassidus, but in other places. But it says in Chazal that at the beginning, it rose up in Hashem's mind to create the world only with Gevurah, right? Because that's the notion of world. World is going to have distinctiveness to it, and that's the Midah of Gevurah. And the Maimar Chazal goes on and says he saw that the world couldn't exist like that, so he partnered the Midah of Chesed with the Midah of Gevurah, to the extent that Chesed, the Olam Yabana, Chesed, the world is built with Chesed. She'akol kadei, because everything is in order. She'titroa hayabashiv ha'odam aleha la'avedas Hashem, because the whole purpose is that there should be a dry land and a person, a human being on it to serve Hashem. V'chein kulam, and likewise all the aspects of this world, they are all made from inter-inclusion, olam atikun. And this is what the Zohar says, interestingly enough, in the section of the Zohar called tikkunim, right? Tikkun. We make the rectification is that there is an inter-inclusion, and that the physicality, back to our Yom, the physicality of things is not the dominant notion of the thing. The dominant notion of the thing is the godliness which is in the thing and needs to be revealed. And this is what it says, Eliyahu, in the section of the Zohar called Tikkunim, Shom, La'chozo ech, to show us, to reveal, Ekasnachi alum et tzedek, how the world is conducted with righteousness, mishpat, both of them. Tzedek, ihu din. Tzedek is like you go to court and there's a din, a judgment. Mishpat ihu rachame, and then the way the din turns out is it inclines to mercy. So you have court, din, and you have mercy, the mercy of the court, the mercy of the court. And kulam lachazor, all of this is to show ech isnahig alma, how Hashem, and we'll get meaning Hashem himself, HaKodesh Baruch Hu, the essence of Hashem himself, is embedded in and conducts the worlds which appear to be worlds of separation. Avalav de Islo Tzedek Idea. And this tzedek, he is tzedek, but not with a known tzedek. This harks back to our major point of the whole Shar Yichud V'Hamuna, which is this combination of infinite and finite is not something that we can take with our knowledge. So this is not a tzedek idea. This is not a knowable kind of righteousness. The Yehudim, he is the law, he is Gevurah, V'lei Mishpat Yediyah. He is Din, V'lei Mishpat Yediyah, but however, it's not knowable. This ability to unify infinite with finite. The Yehu Rachameh, even his mercy, V'lav Mikol Idon Midas Klal. He is merciful, he is judgmental, but he himself is not from any of these midos at all, although he's invested in all of them. These Erev Shabbos is dry my mouth. It's so long. So that's what we have. Now, what do we have? What do we have from what we have? En od melvado.
That sums it up. You may as well stay there.
Okay. So then we'll let them there. Good Shabbos, Hilula, the Hilula of the Rebbe, of the Rebbe's your site, however way you want to talk about it, Hilula. So good Shabbos and a good Gimel Tammuz.